Hello, and welcome to one of 8 short videos from Skills for STEM. Each video is designed to supplement your CIOB Chartered Membership Program workbooks. These videos should be studied in conjunction with each of the 4 modules, and you should also undertake further reading on the topics introduced. This will help to improve your overall knowledge. The videos will also introduce some useful websites which you can refer to help you to gain a better understanding of the subject. Feel free to stop and start the videos and to make notes in the margins of your workbooks to help you. If you are unsure of a topic, you can always watch the video again to help your learning. Good luck in your pursuit of Chartered Construction Manager. Module 2, Construction Management, Part 1. The construction industry is often cited as being siloed in its thinking when considering construction projects. This tends to be because the client considers the inception of the project when it starts as an idea. For the main contractor, the project doesn't actually start until they receive the tender documentation or when they start on site. For the subcontractor, it is not actually until the project purchase order has been received that they consider the project has started. The point at which a project can be considered to be completed is also equally confusing. For the main contractor, it may be at handover or practical completion, but for the client or building owner, the same project could be ongoing for 25 years or more. This siloed thinking has led to accusations that the construction industry is somewhat adversarial. In 1993, to try to resolve the confrontational nature of the sector, the government of the day asked Sir Michael Latham to undertake a study and report on the construction industry. The report, published in 1994, became known as the Latham Report. This was an influential work on the adversarial nature of the construction industry. His report, Constructing the Team, available at this URL, was instrumental in encouraging a more collaborative environment in the construction industry and still has a profound influence today, and it is hoped his positive legacy will be felt for many decades to come. The Latham Report became a reference point for subsequent studies by Sir John Egan with the Rethinking Construction Task Force report of 1998, Crossrail Chief Executive Andrew Wolstenholme's with Never Waste a Good Crisis, and publication of the Government Construction Strategy, produced by former Government Chief Construction Advisor Paul Morrell. In his report, Sir Michael states, "The construction industry is adversarial in nature. It needs to adopt the recommendations of the Latham Report to change and survive. These tasks are substantial. The timescales are demanding, but the goodwill which has been evident throughout the review encourages me to believe that they can be achieved. This great industry meets new challenges every day. I am sure that it can and will meet these as well." The infinite number of variables involved in any project may seem confusing, but there is one overarching document which encompasses the entire process of the management of a construction project from inception to completion for all the potential parties involved. First developed in 1963, the Royal Institute of British Architects Plan of Works has, for the last half-century, been the definitive UK model for the building design and construction process. It exercises significant influence on an international stage as well. Although developed by the RIBA, this document is as relevant for facilities managers, architects or planners as it is for anybody else involved in a construction project. The current 2013 version is also supported by an extensive website. At this website, RIBAplanofworks.com, it is possible to view and download a plan. You can customize a plan, or through the use of the toolbox section, gain access to essential guidance and support, as well as a series of helpful templates to create a project roles table or a responsibility matrix. The REBA Plan of Works organises the process of briefing, designing, constructing, maintaining, operating and using building projects into a number of key stages. It details the tasks and outputs required at each stage, which may vary or overlap to suit specific project requirements. You do not have to be an architect to access, apply and benefit from the REBA Plan of Works 2013. It is the common term of reference for industry professionals and forms the backdrop for associated work processes such as the Building Services Research and Information Association BG6 for service engineers, the Association of Consulting Engineers Agreement, as well as PAS 1192 for BIM. Here is a short video which introduces PAS 1192.
What is PAS 1192 Part 2? PAS stands for Publicly Available Specification. It enables an emerging standard to be rapidly developed in response to an immediate industry need. In this case, PAS 1192 Part 2 was developed to support BIM adoption in the United Kingdom. It provides a consistent industry-wide framework for collaborative working and information management in a BIM Level 2 environment. PAS 1192 Part 2 evolved from the British standard BS 1192, published in 2007. That document set out the code of practice for the collaborative production of building project information. BS 1192 is effectively Part 1 of the PAS 1192 Part 2 publication. It is still relevant today. PAS 1192 Part 2 focuses on information that is originated, exchanged or managed in a BIM format. BS 1192 covers all other areas of project information management. So why the need for these documents? While producing information that is unnecessary, confusing, not structured properly, poorly coordinated and/or difficult to find, has been found to add around 20 to 25% onto the cost of delivering our built environment. Having greater integrity and taking more care of the way we structure our data can eradicate this waste from the process. Greater clarity will give us improved levels of efficiency, leading to time and cost savings. When we focus our energies on the important parts of the process, rather than on searching for or interpreting information, we become more effective. This can ultimately improve the quality of the built environment that we all live our lives in. The important point here is that this approach requires more discipline, not more work. So what does the PAS 1192 framework look like? Well, it's aligned to the latest RIBA work stages and recognises information increasing through the project delivery period to the point of handing over the new asset to the customer and end user. At this point, with the information at its richest, data is passed to the customer and end user to enable them to operate their new asset. Collectively, this data is known as an information model, though it must be noted that a physical 3D model is only one part. BIM is a process, not just 3D modelling. Data generated in the project delivery phase sits within the project information model. Once handed over and in operation, this is known as the asset information model. The model can be continually enriched during the operational phase to assist in managing the asset. PAS 1192 Part 2 covers the project delivery phase, stages 1 to 6 only. The operational phase of a building's life cycle is covered by a separate PAS document following on from PAS 1192 Part 2, cleverly termed PAS 1192 Part 3. All information must be exchanged in a common data environment accessible by the whole project team. PAS 1192 Part 2 sets out clear protocols for the authoring and sharing of information in a common data environment once it is ready to be published. Key documentation is required throughout the project lifecycle to support the process. This starts at the outset of capital expenditure on an asset with the Employer's Information Requirements, or EIR. Here the strategy for meeting the customer's needs is determined. The EIR sets out the information that a customer will require to run their new facility and to make decisions about its development during the project delivery process. With this strategy in place, procurement can occur and the BIM execution plan, based on the EIR, can be created. The execution plan explains how the information modelling aspects of the project will be carried out and is a key document for all parties. Following the process of contract award, the Master Information Delivery Plan is produced. This sets out the information that is to be prepared, who needs to prepare it, and the protocols and procedures for its production and release. This can only be developed from the BIM execution plan and EIR. It is essential that it is in place prior to the start of the design process. From this firm foundation, the project team can mobilise and commence the project delivery process, building their information model in full alignment with the customer's needs and requirements. At the point of handover, operating expenditure commences and the asset management phase begins. This period is governed by PAS 1192 Part 3, as we discussed earlier. By possessing a data-rich information model, the customer and end user are able to assess the performance of their built asset and wider property estate over time. This allows them to be better informed when renewing their assets and commencing the delivery process again in the future. The cycle is supported by continual information exchange between the project team and key customer decision points throughout. PAS 1192 Part 2 is a key document in managing Level 2 BIM projects. Visit the British Standards website for more information or to download a copy.
Supply chain management has its roots in the manufacturing industry. The production methods of Henry Ford in the late 1920s created the supply chain management system that remains largely unchanged today. The central focus is on the production of process of goods through the control of material flow. Large efficiency gains can be achieved through managing the interfaces between organisations. Both Latham and Egan recognise this as being relevant to construction in their respective reports. What is supply chain management? Supply is the flow of resources used to satisfy a demand, such as materials, labour, information and skills. It can also refer to competencies and represent combinations of resources. Commodity suppliers tend to be more price focused, while strategic suppliers are more quality delivery focused. Chains represent the notion of links within and between both resources and competencies. They are based upon relationships between people and organisations and processes within and between organisations. Management is the exercise of formal authority within a structured organisational setting that is directed towards aims and objectives through the efforts of other people using systems and procedures. Therefore, supply chain management requires a holistic perspective and a view of organisations as parts of a process. It requires the ability to look beyond organisational boundaries and a recognition of the interdependence of organisations. Managing the supply chain involves understanding the breakdown and traceability of products and services, organisations, logistics, people, activities, information and resources that transform raw materials into a finished product that is fit for its purpose. Buildings are becoming increasingly complex and require more design input by specialist suppliers. At the same time, there is an increase in fragmentation of the industry, as can be seen from the growth of specialist suppliers and contractors. The supply chain is relatively unstable, and the industry is project-based with defined start and end points, and has a traditional separation between design and construction. The government's construction strategy, as defined by Paul Morrell, recommended 3 different procurement routes that aim to improve the supply chain management process. These are private finance initiatives, prime contracting, and design and build. With each of these, the client enters into a relationship with a single integrated supply team, which may include the main contractor, designers, subcontractors, suppliers, facilities managers, and so on. This replicates the activities that have taken place in the manufacturing sector. We introduced building information modelling in a previous module. Here, we want to look more closely at how the inclusion of time and cost can increase the capacity and capability of a BIM model. BIM Level 4, or 4D BIM, incorporates the inclusion of time. As a result of this, we are able to look at the substructure and superstructure of the project and build the project over time, determining when appropriate resources and labour should be incorporated in order to be able to complete the project on time. Level 5 BIM, or 5D BIM, incorporates costs allocated to particular components within the project and allows us to be able to change different variables and see the impact that this will have on the overall project cost. These additions provide exciting prospects for the future, as can be seen in this video by Vinnie Berger. In your workbooks is a case study of the supply chain process and risk management that was incorporated for the building of the Olympic Park. Key actions for managing the processes for the supply chain and risks included early engagement with industry and key stakeholders, which helped to ascertain the appetite and capacity to supply goods and services to the programme. Credit and financial checks were made prior to the engagement of suppliers, and key indicators were used to monitor the ongoing financial stability of key suppliers. The supply chain management team maintained a central register of all critical packages, which was continually updated as new contracts were awarded. Where availability was at risk, accelerated buying and delivery to site of key components reduce the potential impact of insolvency or shortage of supply. Monthly risk and insolvency tracking meetings were held by the executive team as an additional level of supplier assurance. A key risk was program impact from insolvencies to off-site components. In the event of insolvency within the supply chain, the Olympic Delivery Authority developed a recovery plan, including a recovery team. Recovery teams comprised key executive parties from the client or contractor who were empowered to negotiate with the administrator to minimise impact to site delivery. 403 interventions were recorded in response to an increased level of supplier risk at a combined value of £640 million. Quick actions taken by the ODA, delivery partner and main contractor protected the agreed completion milestones. The combined project team was able to agree and implement mitigation measures to reduce potentially disastrous impacts. Further improvements in the insolvency management processes were possible through increased awareness and education. Of course, as we know, the Olympic Park was delivered on time and to budget. Having considered the supply chain, we should now turn our attention to the management of resources in the construction industry, including personnel, plant and equipment, project finance, and subcontractors. Personnel management is an administrative function of an organisation that exists to provide the personnel needed for organisational activities and to manage the general employee-employer relationship. The personnel management approach concerns itself with establishing rules, policies, procedures and contracts and strives to monitor and enforce compliance to such regulations, with careful delineation of written contract. Personnel management also holds employee satisfaction as the key to keeping employees motivated and institutes compensation, bonuses, rewards and work simplification initiatives as positive motivators. Leadership is an attribute that is often shrouded in mystery, and frequently people are placed in leadership roles when they have no idea what leaders truly do. Modern leadership is moving away from the command and control idea, and the role has become more focused on how to unlock the power and potential of those around you. Initiatives such as the Investors in People program encourage the use of solicitation of feedback, asking good questions, and getting people to engage in lifelong learning. It is always important as a leader to be aware of your strengths, to gain feedback, to ask good questions and listen to the responses, and reflect on that information to adapt your leadership style. As a leader, it is important to be positive, develop a vision, lead by example, be inclusive, and manage negativity. Members of your team can expect you as a leader to create a clear vision, to set individual goals to meet that vision, and to provide the space to achieve those goals. As chartered construction managers, we have the opportunity to be the change that we want to see in the world. Critical to the success of a construction project is the management of materials on site. Waste is a common problem in the construction industry, and for many projects, too many materials may be ordered and end up on site too early or are discarded as waste. On inner city projects, this may be a particular problem, as the site itself may not provide sufficient space in order to store materials delivered too early. A materials logistic plan can help to manage all of the materials on a construction site. There are several stages in setting up the plan, which include identifying who is responsible and their roles, and how to identify the responsible people for your materials logistic plan, setting up training and communication so people understand exactly how to implement the plan, determining the type and quantity of each material that your project will need, and of course we have seen that BIM can certainly help with this in the future. It is important to identify how you will store your materials, particularly if space on the site is at a premium. As we have already seen in the supply chain management section, it is important to ensure that any subcontractors that you use are prepared and are included in the material logistics plan. And of course, with any plan, it is always important to review and improve the plan itself and any future plans. Once you have established the roles and responsibilities within your materials logistic plan and sorted out any relevant training, you'll need to identify the project's material requirements. This includes the types and quantities of materials to be used throughout the project, how and when they will be delivered to site, and any constraints. You should also set key performance indicators, or KPIs, for purchasing all key materials. As a main contractor or subcontractor, you may need to prepare a bill of quantities. A bill of quantities, sometimes referred to as a BOQ or BQ, is a document prepared by the cost consultant, who is often a quantity surveyor, that provides project-specific measured quantities of the items of work identified by the drawings and specifications in the tender documentation. The quantities may be measured in number, length, area, volume, weight, or time. Preparing a bill of quantities requires that the design is complete and a specification has been prepared. The bill of quantities is issued to tenderers for them to prepare a price for carrying out the works. The bill of quantities assists tenderers in the calculations of construction costs for their tender. The supply chain, as we have already learned, is the interconnected hierarchy of suppliers. As construction has become more complex and suppliers have become more specialist, so the supply chain has extended. On a straightforward traditional build project, design consultants and the main contractor, sometimes referred to as Tier 1 suppliers, work for the employer, and the main contractor may have a limited chain of their own suppliers. On PFI or design and build projects, however, there may be just one first-tier contractor or principal supplier, with a wide range of consultants, subconsultants, and subcontractors working for them. The situation becomes more complicated on large projects when the employer has several Tier 1 suppliers, all with extended supply chains. This may cascade down to a plethora of suppliers, sometimes unknown to management at the top of the chain. One of the difficulties encountered in the construction industry is that the first and second tier of the supply chain often sign up to fairly onerous contract conditions. But as the chain develops, so the contractual liabilities decrease until suppliers at the end of the chain may not be locked in at all. What is critical, however, is that whatever materials you need for your project, you will need to work out how those materials will be received and stored on your site. Areas for storage should be chosen during the initial stages of the project, and you should ensure that they are clearly defined at the start of the project itself. This will prevent the areas from becoming overfilled and ensure they remain suitable for materials, i.e. a dry place for storing plasterboard, for example. You should also provide good site security, such as a perimeter fence and security staff, to minimize the risk of losing materials to theft or vandalism. Planning conditions, such as site delivery times, may impact on the receipt or storage of materials. You should ensure that you have the necessary planning permissions in place during the design stage. We will look at project finance and the management of subcontractors in the second part of this module. This concludes Module 2, Part 1.